Getting brand new customers can actually cost up to 5 times more than just retaining the customers that you already have. And not only that, but repeat customers are generally willing to spend more money with your business because they've bought from you before, and so they know what your products are like, and they're generally willing to spend more money on them because they already know that they enjoy them. So today I wanted to talk about the 4 main ways that I get customers coming back to buy more from my small business. Hey everyone, it's Nick with the 1994 Candle Co. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Obviously, if you're not new here, you know that this is not our usual setup. I am out in our living room right now because my wife is currently working from home, and so she uses the candle studio as her office during the day. So we're just gonna hang out in my living room. It's kind of nice. We're just sitting, chatting about business stuff and stuff like that. So I don't know, felt like it was a little more cozy this time. There's actually, I don't think you can see it, but there's a blanket that I was gonna like try and make it look nice on the couch back there, but there's a cat currently sleeping in it, and so I'm not a monster, so I wasn't gonna move her. So it's fine. I'm pretty much sitting in front of it anyway, so I don't think you can see it. But you know, if you see a cat running around in the background, you know, it's fine. So the first thing, and this is probably the most obvious one, I promise these are not all like super easy, super obvious or whatever, but this one is probably the most obvious, and that is making sure that you have a really good product before launching. I hear so many candle makers say that like they didn't even test or really test that much or whatever, and they just started selling or whatever, and it makes me cringe every time because there's so much that can go wrong. There's just so much that can go wrong, not only like with safety and stuff like that, but also just like, you know, your candles could not smell like anything. Even if you followed all the directions that, you know, you got from your supplier or from whoever you're watching on YouTube, whether it's me or someone else, you could follow all the directions exactly to the T, and you could still like not have a candle that for whatever reason, for some reason, it just doesn't throw super well, doesn't, you know, perform great and stuff like that. And so it is so important, so important. I can't stress this enough. So important to test your products and test them a whole lot. I'm not just talking about like making a candle, testing it, it smells great, okay, great, let's make 50 candles and sell them all or whatever. Like, you need to go through the testing process or whatever. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you that you need to make 1 billion candles or anything like that before you start selling them, but you definitely need to test, and I would test multiple scents. You know, if you want to test out different waxes, great. You know, things like that. You just need to test different wicks, at least different fragrances, stuff like that, in order to make sure that your candles are going to perform really well and everything like that. Because obviously the number one thing that our customers care about is how strong the candle is. They don't really care about how it's burning or anything like that. They don't really pay attention to that stuff. They don't care about the wet spots and stuff like that we all do care about. But yeah, they don't care about that stuff. They just want a candle that is going to fill their space really well and stuff like that. I can't tell you how many times at markets I get the question of like, people are like, you know, I like buy candles sometimes from other makers and they smell really good like when I'm opening the jar, but then when I light them, I can't smell them at all. And yes, although it's obviously good that they bought the candle in the first place, but if they got home and they lit it and they couldn't smell it or whatever, you know, like they're probably not gonna buy from you again because that's really all they care about is how strong the candle is. After you feel like you've got a really good product and everything, I would suggest maybe giving a few to close friends or family or people that are for sure gonna give you an honest answer and not just tell you what you want to hear. So like for instance, I made sure not to give free candles. I mean, I did give her free candles, but not for feedback. But I did not give my mom free candles for feedback specifically because I love her, but she's always gonna tell me everything I do is great. So I just knew that I wasn't gonna get really good, like honest feedback from her and everything. So I chose wisely the friends and people who I gave candles to get some honest feedback from them and all that before I launched my business. So if you have been getting maybe some not so great feedback on either one of your scents or multiple of your scents or something like that, maybe it would be good to kind of just put a pause on that product for a little bit, do some more testing, and just kind of see what you can change or whatever to make it a little bit better. Or if you have a scent that is just not selling, it just might not be a popular scent, and that's also okay. So I would just suggest maybe discontinuing that specific scent or whatever if it's just one in particular that you're just not getting some great feedback on or whatever. You know, maybe it's time if you've done testing and you feel like it's still strong, maybe people just don't really like the scent as much or whatever, and so maybe it's time to discontinue that scent. I know I have the biggest problem with discontinuing scents because I love so many of them, and so it's really hard for me to discontinue ones that I love, but the reality is if it's not selling, if it's not making money, like something's gotta give eventually. So like I said, first one is pretty obvious, I know, but make sure that you have a really great product before launching. And by great product, I mostly mean a really strong throwing, hot throw specifically, candle. Cold throw might get people to buy your candles initially, but unfortunately, if they don't have a great hot throw, there's gonna be a pretty low chance that people are gonna wanna come back and buy more candles from you. Real fast, before we get to this next point, it would mean so much to me if you are finding value in this video, if you'd give it a thumbs up, as well as subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so that we can continue hanging out. All right, moving on to number 2, and honestly, I think this is probably the most important one, and that is having good customer service. And I would even maybe say not just good customer service, you need to have great customer service. As a small business, unfortunately, we're just kind of, a lot of the times people have certain opinions about small businesses and stuff like that, like they're just not as good as, manufactured and stuff like that, which isn't definitely not always true. It can be in some certain circumstances, but definitely in a lot of circumstances, I don't think that that's true. I think a lot of handmade businesses are actually even better than manufactured because they actually take the time to pay attention to each and every product, and they really, are looking at it because they made it themselves or whatever. And so I think that a lot of the time small businesses do get kind of a bad rap and stuff like that, but also I think that that's because a lot of our customer service is not great. I know a lot of small business owners went into small business because they didn't want to have a job somewhere else. And so a lot of the times that means that none of us have ever worked in customer service. So thankfully, I actually have worked a few different jobs in customer service. And so I kind of know some good tips and tricks to do and stuff like that. But the reality is working in customer service is not a fun time. In fact, one of my customer service jobs was my worst job ever, and I would never ever want to go back to that job if even if there was no other choices for jobs in the world, I would just be homeless, I guess. I don't know. I would not want to go back to that job ever. I literally have nightmares about having to go back to that job sometimes. It is the worst. But even though it was a horrible job, or the one specifically that I'm thinking of, it probably taught me the most about customer service. And so the number one thing that I see happening in candle groups and stuff like that specifically all the time is people blaming the customer for, whatever happened, whether they burned the candle all the way to the bottom and it, shattered the glass or whatever, or, they burned it too long and they didn't trim the wick and something went wrong, or it started smoking a lot, or, whatever the case may be. I just see a lot of candle makers, unfortunately, blaming the customer. And yes, burning the candle too long and not trimming the wick and stuff like that, that is out of your hands, and it is technically up to the customer to do those things. But the reality is that you should also still be testing for the customer to not do those things, because the reality is we all know that not every customer is going to follow every direction and follow all the safety guidelines and stuff like that. I know, I wish that they all would, because, you know, you're literally putting a small fire in their house or whatever. And so I wish that they would all follow the directions, but the reality is they're just not going to. And so you need to make sure, kind of going back to number one, that your product is not only good, but it's also very safe. And that even if they don't trim their wick, you need to test and make sure that your glass isn't gonna explode or anything like that from getting too hot or things like that. And I would suggest that even if you do get a customer who, you know, did all the wrong things or whatever and stuff like that, like, first of all, educate them on how to do better next time. And then also, you need to swallow your pride and you need to send them another candle. I know that that's rough, because it's like, I could be making, you know, X amount of dollars on this candle and now I'm having to send it for free. But you need to be pricing your products so that you're able to do that and it's not going to hurt your business. I know it sucks to occasionally lose a candle or a wax melt or whatever and not be able to, you know, earn money off of that one or whatever. But like I said, you need to be pricing your products so that that isn't going to hurt you and that you're able to do that and still be okay. And I know when I say that, that like everyone's gonna be like, well, what if they're just trying to get a free candle or whatever? What's the big deal? Like, honestly, if they're trying to get a free candle, like, I mean, yeah, like, it's frustrating and it's annoying or whatever, but the reality is, like, if you send them a free candle or whatever, even if, yes, they are trying to just get a free candle, which I'm gonna be honest, in the 2.5 years that I've been doing this, I've never once ran into someone that I felt like was actually just trying to get a free candle. So it really isn't as common as we make it out to be or whatever. But even if they are just trying to get a free candle, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that big of a deal. I would much rather send them the free candle and have them eventually reorder or whatever than them actually having an issue with their candle, not knowing it, and then blaming them and, you know, not sending them anything or whatever, and them never wanting to buy from me again because I, you know, wasn't a very good customer service representative or whatever. And, you know, they didn't feel, you know, like whenever someone blames me as the customer, I automatically do not want to shop with them again, because like, I'm just like, even if it is my fault, I'm like, well, okay, thank you for making me feel like an idiot or whatever. And like, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm like, well, probably not gonna buy from them again. So it's definitely important to educate your customers on, hey, yes, sorry that happened. You probably should be trimming the wick. Don't let it burn so long, etc. Whatever the issue may be, educate them, but then send them another candle. Like, whatever the issue is, just do it, because I promise you that will make them want to buy from you so much more than if you just say, well, you did it wrong, sorry, that's on you. I see so many candle businesses, like I said, blaming the customers or whatever in like different Facebook groups and stuff like that, and every time I'm just like, I would not want to buy from you because like, it's just not a good, it doesn't leave you with a good impression of that business or whatever. And so that is definitely probably one of the most important things, is you need to have good customer service. I even go as far, you don't necessarily have to go this far, but the reality is that buying a candle online is really hard to do. If you've never, smelled it in person and things like that, you just don't know for sure if you're gonna love that candle. Now, most people tend to know like if they're gonna like, more sweet bakery type scents, or, whether they like more earthy scents, things like that or whatever. But overall, you're just not sure if you're gonna like a certain scent. And so something that I like to do is I actually have in my policy on my website, and I've actually never had anyone use this before or whatever, and which I'm kind of glad, because I'm like, it means that I think most of them have liked their candles and stuff like that, at least. But yeah, I've never had anyone tell me that they didn't like a certain scent or anything like that. And so, but I have in my policy on my website is that if you don't like the scent, I will actually help you pick another one, and I'll send out another candle for free. I'm not gonna charge them for it. If they haven't burned the candle yet or whatever, I might ask for it back or whatever. I've never actually ran into this situation, so it kind of is a case-by-case basis or whatever. But if that were to happen, like I said, and they hadn't burned it yet and they just smelled it and like realized that they didn't like it or whatever, I would maybe, have them send it back or something like that. But I would much rather them have a scent that they like and get a candle for free and want to, buy from my business again in the future, rather than being like, wow, hated that scent. He blamed me for XYZ, or, whatever the circumstances and stuff like that. I would much rather have, them be a happy customer and have a really good experience, even if that means they got a free candle out of me or whatever. I would much rather them have that good, happy experience than be like, oh, I hated this. This was not good. I don't want to ever buy from him again. Because that is kind of the reality with online shopping and stuff like that. If they didn't like the very first thing that they got, like there's like a really small % chance that they are ever gonna buy from you again. And so I do put that in the policy on my website and everything, that they can get, another candle. I'll even help them choose one that they would probably like and stuff like that. Like I said, whether you wanna go that far as to have that policy or not is totally up to you. I don't think that you necessarily have to do that in order to have amazing customer service. But as far as everything else I said, I would highly recommend that you take some of that to heart. I know it's hard to give people free candles because you're like, man, I spent so much time wick testing and, making the candles and testing and labeling and making the labels and just all the things that we all do behind the scenes that like our customers don't even think about or whatever. So I know that it's hard to send out a free candle every now and then or whatever, but I promise you it will help your business grow. So this next one is actually something that's new for me, something that I just did recently, and it actually brought back a lot of customers who had bought from me, like they've bought from me a few times or whatever and stuff, and they liked their stuff, but it's just been quite a while since they've placed another order or anything like that. And so this was something that I did, and that was having limited edition products. So how I did this recently was I had 3 limited edition fall scents for my fall collection, and they were actually like in completely different jars and everything. Like they had a different label design, they had different jars. Each scent was actually in a different jar too. Like they were all basically the same jar, but they were just different colors, if that makes sense. I'll throw up a picture on here so you can kind of see what they look like and stuff like that. I think what that does though is like for people who haven't maybe bought in a while, maybe it's just that, they like the smell of your candles, maybe they don't necessarily love the look of them, or maybe they're just tired of the same look. I have several customers who like bought for a really long time and then kind of stopped buying for a little bit, and I think that the problem was like they have like 50 of my candles or whatever, and they all look exactly the same except for like a few, obviously the scent is different and the label's slightly different, but for the most part they look exactly the same. So I think that when I did these limited edition scents, I think that that helped them like, oh, this feels like a brand new product or whatever, even though it's still kind of similar or whatever to what I'm already selling and everything. It's basically the same thing, it's just in a different packaging. So I had a lot of customers, as well as first-time customers, but I had a lot of customers who hadn't placed an order in a while and stuff like that, but they came back to these limited edition scents. And I think having something that is only gonna be around for like a limited time really makes people kind of, they're like, oh, I have to buy this now or it's gonna sell out and I'm, not gonna be able to get it again and stuff like that. And so, like for instance, Replica Surfaces is someone who does this really well. I'm in their Facebook group and they do special limited edition surfaces that they release like almost every month or whatever, I think, something like that, and it gets me almost every time. Like I have so many replica surfaces and they really are only like, they'll usually bring them back at least once or twice or something like that, but a lot of the times like you really only can get them a few times and then they're gone, at least until next year, maybe forever though, because sometimes they definitely get rid of some forever and stuff like that. And so it's just, something that always gets me. I'm like, oh, I have to have this. So this is something that definitely works on me, is limited edition products and stuff like that. And so I just know that it definitely works with multiple businesses. And then the fourth way that I get customers coming back is by doing freebies and sales. So what do I mean by that? So freebies, specifically in every single order, I like to put a little wax melt sample. I did tea lights for a while and I hated that or whatever. It was just not a good time. I hated making them and stuff. So I did switch to wax melt samples and stuff. And so I enjoy those a lot. They're a lot easier to make. And I usually will just make them like whenever I make the actual wax melt itself. I'll just make a few samples as well, and I have this little box that I keep them all in and stuff like that. So I just pick out a random scent that, you know, wasn't in their order, or one that I think that they will like or something like that, and I like to send those in with their order. And I get so many compliments on that. Like, so many people have told me, like, they're like, oh my gosh, I love this scent and now I have to have this one. And so then they go back and place another order for that scent. And that is a really good way to get people to smell more of your scents and get used to like more of your products and stuff like that. And if you're curious what that looks like, so this is one of my wax melt samples. They just come in these little single clamshell molds. I got these from Midwest Fragrance Company, but honestly a lot of places sell those type of clamshells, so you can get them from multiple different suppliers. Or another way is, these are a little bit more expensive. I mean, they're still not that much. It's like, you know, a couple cents or something like that more, but if you want slightly cheaper or whatever, I have used these in the past. They're just little glassine bags, and then I put a label just like the one that's on here or whatever, but I put a little label on it to close it and keep it closed and stuff like that, but also that has the scent name and stuff on it, and so they know exactly what scent they're getting. But I also have like a little mold that I got that maybe does about like half of this or whatever. It's like a little bit closer to like half of one of these squares or whatever, so they're a little less expensive that way or whatever. It kind of just depends. Sometimes I still use this method or whatever. It just depends on, you know, what I have available and stuff like that. Sometimes after I've made these ones these are what I use for my wax melt sample packs, which I have like a whole sample pack that you can buy or whatever and stuff like that. But sometimes after I've made these, I have extras of certain scents, and so those will just get thrown into my little freebies and stuff like that. And then something else that I like to include in every order is a little, this is room spray care, but it's a candle care card. And then on the back, there's a thank you with a little 15% off discount code for their next order. And yes, if you saw that code and you want to buy something from my website, you can absolutely use the discount code. I don't care. These are just, they come in little sets of 4, basically. It's called postcard paper or something like that. I just get it from Amazon. I'll leave a link down in the description box below where you can get it. But I just basically make these little cards or whatever myself in Canva, and then you can print them out and they basically are perforated and they tear apart. But I like to include those as well as the wax melt samples in every order, and that really encourages people to want to buy, you know, again, whether they buy the scent that you sent them or they want to buy something else or whatever, the discount code really helps them to want to come back and place another order. And then on top of the discount code or whatever, another great thing is just doing a general sale or whatever on your website, or maybe even doing one for specific, you know, like if you do a seasonal collection or whatever, when it's kind of getting the end of that season, it's a really good idea to kind of clear out those products and stuff. And so you can do a, you know, sale on certain scents and stuff like that or whatever, to kind of get those customers back in the door wanting to buy something else. Sales are obviously a great way to get first-time customers as well, just because, you know, they've never bought something from you before, so they don't know how they're gonna like it. And so if they can get it at a discount, they generally, you know, are more willing to buy something something from someone that they've never met and never bought before. But it also really helps with getting some repeat customers if they know that they can get a scent that they already know that they like or whatever, if they know that they can get it at a discount, or maybe they're, like I said before, maybe there's another scent that they wanted to try but they weren't sure about. They're a little more willing to try it out or whatever if the scent is discounted and stuff like that. But that is gonna be it for today's video. I really hope that this helped. I hope that you guys implement some of these things and that you start getting repeat customers and stuff, and that they keep coming back and they're super thrilled with your business and everything. And I hope that it really helps your business continue to grow even more. But if you guys would like to continue hanging out, there's gonna be some other videos that pop up on the screen, and I will see you there.